How you doing? This is Zach Allen. We're going to talk a little bit about swing plane today. Something that I grew up believing in and always working on, right? Or just, you can see kind of by this plane station that I've built here, just the fact that if I could keep the club on this plane going back and come down the same plane in my downswing, that would lead to very consistent straight shots, right? Because obviously the club would be lining right back up with the sweet spot. But while swing plane as a reference is important, I want you to look at it a little bit differently today. I think if you can view what swing plane actually really is and how it works in a powerful golf swing, you're going to hit the shots much farther and much straighter with that imagery. So, basically swing plane, just for those of you who don't know, it's just a parallel line to my shafted address. And that could be a little different angle for a driver. It'd be a flatter angle. I've got a 9-iron here, it's going to be a little more upright angle. Okay, so here I am going back to the top. I'm keeping the club parallel to that plane. And then coming down, same thing. The club is staying parallel to that plane. But what we're missing here is as I keep this club down and in front of me and I work the club on plane, you can see my body's not very dynamic. The club is moving in this straight line kind of linear fashion. There's not a lot of speed that's going to be generated there, especially not a lot of rotational speed. So I want you to think of swing plane a little bit differently. I've got these balls, this kind of semicircle of balls drawn on the ground. And what I feel like in a good powerful swing, I do feel like the backswing plane is a very good reference for how we want the club to go back. But as I start down, I don't feel anything linear happening at all, okay? I feel like my body is actually starting to leverage the ground and rotate, and I feel my hand, arm, and golf club trying to stay back and behind me. Okay, so my left arm feels like it's actually doing this, and I feel like my body is turning into that motion. Okay, so when you see this coming down, it is somewhat close to that green stick here, but you can see how different of a position my body's in. So it feels much more like a circle than anything that's ever working in a linear fashion like I would have here. Okay, so with that circle, we get power, right? We get this rotational impulse that gives us a lot more speed to the club. I'm going to be showing you some professional golfers here and some traces of their club, and we're going to kind of get a better vision of what I want you to kind of think of when you think of the downswing. So swing plane, definitely good reference for the backswing, but as you get working down, I want you to kind of view it differently. You can see here as I get down into impact, my hips have opened up. You can see the logo here on the back of my pants here is quite a bit around, and I feel my left arm and club lowering down and behind me. Okay, so that's me getting to basically this first golf ball right here. So from that point on, right, that's the first step in getting the club to be down into a good hitting position, getting my body to really have some leverage to rotate, and now from here, it's working around me in a circle. Okay, let's see if I can do this without hitting these sticks. So on 2D video, it might look like it's on plane when we see good players do it, but I'll tell you this, it doesn't feel anything at all like that, okay? When viewed from this face-on view, you'll see here that when good players get up to the top, right, you see the height of my shaft, the height of my arms, right away we see their club starting to lower and drop as they start down, okay? So it's not a matter of, okay, up this plane, and then we come down like this. You see how my body's not being very dynamic there. My arms are too much out in front and the club is working in a straight line. We're trying to get that club to work in more of a circle, okay? That circle is being started by what my body's doing. So you see how much, you see the height of my club header at the top? You see how it's lowering as I start down. My arms are lowering, body's lowering. Now we pick up this semicircle and we come around and through to our finish. So once you start getting a better sense of just the geometry of this circle, not a straight line, you're going to see that impulse go out to the club head and you're going to see much greater club head speeds, right? For those of you also that want to get your hands in front of the ball, once you start lowering that club down behind you and you start to open up and rotate, you can see that by the time I get to impact, I'm going to have my hands in front of the golf ball. We're not trying to bring the club down on plane and then put our hands in front of the ball. You can see my body's not doing a whole lot there, right? We might get our hands in front of the ball, but there's no rotational energy to the club. We're getting our hands in front of the ball by lowering the arms, right? Lowering them down and behind us, pressuring the ground and opening up, And now as I get to impact, my hands are going to be in front of the ball, okay? I'm about halfway on that semicircle, and then I'm rotating through. So what I would suggest you do is don't worry too much about the plane, maybe a little bit on the backswing to make sure that you're in a good position going back, but then practice with some balls on the ground just like this. It's just kind of a little semicircle, and practice feeling, how can I get to this first ball? So I feel my hands getting to this first ball here as I start down. My body's rotating and opening up, and from this point on, I'm going around the corner up into my finish. I guarantee that's going to give you a lot more rotational impulse, and you'll really get a good vision and feel for what the downswing should feel like. Let's go ahead and look at those pros now.
All right, so first up we've got world number 1, Dustin Johnson. And you can see this is a really interesting way to view the swing. This is called Club Tracker, and what's happening here is we're taking a look at every inch and position of the club head travel and the shaft position. So the camera angle is not quite spot on here. The camera's a little too far behind his heels. You can see he's getting the club, you know, on plane in his takeaway. It's going to look more outside because of the camera angle. But, you know, hands and arms are right in front of him. Club's on a, you know, relatively good plane. But I want you to take note of what happens in transition, okay? And how different that would feel to most of you, you know, compared to trying to keep the club going up and down the same plane line. So that's the point in which he starts to lower his hands and arms behind him. He starts to leverage the ground and squat. It's something that I call in some of my other videos, I call it the twirl, right? The club is lowering and shallowing, and at about this point, he's going to get onto that semicircle of golf balls that we had laid down on the ground. So once he gets on that, the rotational impulse is really going to energize, and there's going to be a lot more energy sent out into that club head. Okay, but just so you know, the whole point in this is just really getting a sense of it definitely is not linear or in a straight line. Okay, that move to most of you would feel very foreign as we start down. Once you get it into that position, you're going to be amazed at how much better your body rotates and how much more speed you're going to be able to pick up into your downswing. So next up on this club tracker is Patrick Reed, and a little different view here, more of a face-on view. But the first thing that I think you're going to notice is how the arc of the swing, or the radius of the swing, gets much narrower on the downswing. And I used to think that was because he was lagging the club or holding his wrist angles, but it's not the case, right? So what's happening here is he's starting to, number one, he's starting to lower his center of mass as he kind of squats and pressures the ground. But the big thing is the torque that he's putting on the handle to lower the shaft and head behind and below him as he starts down, right? So it's at this point here, you can see how much narrower the downswing appears, right? Because the club is more behind and below him. His body's leading, it's rotating and opening up. At this point, he gets on that track of balls, or on that semicircle, right? So he's on that first ball right by his right heel at about here. Now the club really starts to orbit around him with a lot of rotational velocity, okay? But the big thing is at no time does this feel like it's on plane or linear or anything like the backswing. Once you can get a grip of what that feels like, you're going to get a lot more speed in your golf swing.
Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed that lesson. If you're interested in getting more free tips and lessons from me, we have an email list that you're more than welcome to be a part of. We send out things every week totally for free. If you haven't signed up already, just click on this link and go ahead and sign up, and you'll get lessons from me every week for free.